Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of the English Learner's Journey. I'm John, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Anna.
Hi, folks. We're so glad you're tuning in. Today, we're diving into some of the most common mistakes learners make when they're on the path to mastering English. It's a topic that's near and dear to our hearts because we've all been there, struggling with those tricky parts of the language. But don't worry, we've got plenty of tips and insights to help you out.
Anna, one mistake we often see is confusion between there, and there. It's a classic mix-up, and it's easy to see why it happens. There is a possessive pronoun. There refers to a place or position, and there is a contraction of they are. The key to remembering the differences is context and practice. For example, you might say, they're going to put their books over there. See how each word serves a different purpose.
That's a great example, John. Another common issue is pronunciation, especially with sounds that don't exist in a learner's native language. Take the eth sound in words like think and this. Many learners struggle with this because it's not a sound they're used to making. A good way to practice is to put your tongue between your teeth and blow air out gently. It might feel strange at first, but with repetition, it becomes more natural.
Exactly. And let's not forget about idiomatic expressions and phrasal verbs, which can be baffling for learners. These phrases often don't make sense if you try to translate them literally. For instance, break the ice means to start a conversation in a social setting, not to literally shatter ice. Understanding these expressions often requires knowing the context in which they're used, so listening to native speakers and practicing in real-life scenarios can be incredibly helpful.
Speaking of listening to native speakers, podcasts are a fantastic resource. You get to hear natural language use, intonation, and the rhythm of speech. Plus, it's a fun way to immerse yourself in the language. You can listen to episodes while commuting, cooking, or even exercising. It's learning on the go.
That's right. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Each error is an opportunity to learn and improve. Remember, even native speakers slip up sometimes. The important thing is to keep practicing and not get discouraged.
So, to all our listeners out there, keep challenging yourselves and embracing those mistakes as part of the journey. We're here to support you every step of the way.
We're back to continue our conversation about the common mistakes English learners make and how you can overcome them. One thing we didn't touch on last time is the challenge of learning new vocabulary. English is a rich language with a vast lexicon, and it can be overwhelming to remember all those new words.
That's true, John. A good strategy is to learn vocabulary in context rather than just memorizing lists of words. For example, if you're reading a book or an article, take note of the new words you encounter and look them up. Write them down in a sentence so you understand how they're used. This way, you're more likely to remember the word and its meaning.
Exactly. And don't forget to use those new words in your daily conversations. The more you use them, the more natural they will become. You can even practice with a language partner or join an online language exchange community.
Another tip is to learn synonyms and antonyms. For instance, if you learn the word happy, also learn its synonyms like joyful, elated, and content, as well as its antonyms like sad, unhappy, and miserable. This not only expands your vocabulary, but also helps you understand the nuances of meaning between different words.
That's a great point, Anna. And while we're on the topic of vocabulary, let's talk about false friends. These are words that look or sound similar in your native language, but have different meanings in English. For instance, the English word actual means real or genuine, while the Spanish word actual means current or present. It's important to be aware of these false friends to avoid misunderstandings. We're going to continue our discussion on common mistakes in English learning. So far, we've covered confusing words, pronunciation challenges, and vocabulary building. Another aspect we want to touch on today is grammar. English grammar can be quite complex with all its rules and exceptions. For instance, many learners struggle with subject-verb agreement, especially with irregular verbs.
That's right, John. A common mistake is forgetting to adjust the verb form when the subject changes. For example, we say, he goes to school, not he go to school. It's a small change, but it makes a big difference in clarity and correctness.
Another tricky area is tenses. English has various tenses that indicate different times and states of action. For instance, the present perfect tense, I have eaten, versus the simple past tense, I ate. The present perfect is used for actions that have relevance to the present moment, while the simple past is used for actions that are completed in the past with no direct link to the present.
And let's not forget about articles, using a, an, and the. This can be really confusing because many languages don't have articles or they use them differently. The key is to remember that a and an are used with non-specific nouns, while the is used with specific nouns. For example, I saw a dog means you're talking about any dog, while I saw the dog means you're talking about a specific dog you and your listener know about.
That's right, Anna. And now, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. Do you have any specific grammar questions or common mistakes that you often find confusing? Let's tackle a few together.
Here's a question from one of our listeners. Why do we sometimes use the present perfect tense instead of the simple past tense? What's the difference?
Great question. The present perfect tense, like I have eaten, is used to describe actions that happened at an unspecified time before now. The focus is on the result or effect in the present. For instance, I have eaten implies you're no longer hungry. On the other hand, the simple past tense, I ate, is used to describe actions completed at a specific time in the past, even if that time isn't mentioned. For example, I ate an hour ago.
Another listener asks, how do I know when to use much versus many?
The classic much versus many. Use much with uncountable nouns, things you can't count individually, like water, money, or advice. For example, how much water do you drink? Use many with countable nouns, things you can count, like books, friends, or mistakes. For example, how many books do you have?
And a final question for today. What are some tips for mastering English pronunciation?
Pronunciation can be tough, but there are a few strategies that can help. First, listen to native speakers as much as possible, whether through podcasts, movies, or conversations. Mimic their speech patterns and intonations. Second, practice difficult sounds slowly and gradually speed up. For instance, practice the TH sound in this and think. Finally, don't be afraid to use tools like online pronunciation guides or language apps that provide feedback on your pronunciation.
Thanks for your questions, everyone. Remember, making mistakes is part of the learning journey. Keep practicing, stay patient, and don't be too hard on yourself.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. And don't forget to send us your questions and topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. See you in the next episode of the English Learner's Journey.